First Berserker is getting praised by gamers all over the internet, and after my 260 hours of gameplay, I'm left feeling nothing, just done. Which is a very odd place to be, seeing as most of the times when I beat a game, if I liked it, which I do like this game, I feel joy. I almost feel like I'm in gaming limbo of some kind. Like I said, I like my experience overall, but something about the game just wasn't right. And I think explaining my journey will help you guys understand where I'm coming from. First Berserker begins like any other Souls-like. You have a tutorial level that explains the basics of combat and ends with a skill check in the form of a boss fight. All of the staples of the genre are here. A stamina-based combat system where attacking, dodging, running, and getting hit on block can drain your energy. Dying will have you dropping your XP, and if you don't pick it up and die a second time, it's lost forever. There's also gear and consumable items to assist you in combat, a limited number of heals, and a bonfire checkpoint system. Anyone that's a fan of FromSoft's Souls series will be right at home. But that's not the only series that Khazan borrowed from. Sekiro's parrying system is also here. If you block right before an attack, you can do a brink guard that chips away at your enemy's stamina bar. This is a very satisfying mechanic that Sekiro introduced, and Khazan is made better for having it. Although later on, you'll see how this one mechanic can bring confusion to the player. There's also Brink Dodge, which is basically a perfect dodge that, depending on how you build your character, it can enhance different moves and apply bonus effects to your character, which is a perfect time to get into builds. The second mission introduces you to the three weapon types in Berserker: dual wield swords, a spear, and the greatsword. Khazan shares DNA from Team Ninja's Nioh series. Weapons can have special moves that you can unlock to change their combat potential. Unlike Nioh and any other Souls-like that I've played, you can only use one weapon at a time. There is no on-the-fly weapon switching, and trust me, this is Berserker's subtle way of telling you to stick to one weapon at a time. Trust me, after over 50 hours of learning the greatsword, I switched over to the spear, just to test it out, to see what it was about, and I had no idea how to use this thing. Comparing it to another game like Elden Ring, where I went from a greatsword to a katana with no real practice, yeah, this game is 100% about learning one weapon and mastering it. The weapon you choose will determine your class, obviously, but don't worry about making that decision early on. You will have plenty of time to test out each weapon, but I strongly suggest you do not try to be a jack of all trades. The game isn't meant for that, and even I was still mastering the greatsword up to the final boss fight. The game's combat system is deep, and if you love video games where mastering one weapon is your thing, or optimizing your build in RPG is something you enjoy doing, Khazan scratches that itch and then some. Berserker's many systems work well together, and I've only just begun. However, sometimes in life, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, and looks like a duck, it may just be a duck, but this little ducky is special. Khazan may seem like every other Souls-like, but it does one thing oddly differently, and so much so that you won't even think it's done differently until you get way into the game. Khazan really doesn't get started until like the third mission. This one mission can either ruin your experience or pump you up to face the next challenge. I found the stage overall was just a straightforward Souls-like, the typical elements that you'll find in any game of this genre. This level teaches you about the companion system though. You can summon a spirit that helps you in a boss fight, so that's something that every Souls game has, but they do it differently here. They took Nioh's Revenant system and Dark Souls' summoning system and made a weird baby out of it. Revenants in Berserker aren't really a source for gear like Nioh. Instead, you fight them to get points to summon the AI partner for the boss fight. You can grind Revenants to have as many turns as you want with them. You also have to use these same points to level them up so they can survive longer in battle. Many people struggle with Souls-likes, and due to the get good nature that some people have, some folks opt out of using summons. I think by having you fight revenants to even use the summons for the boss fight makes the player still have to learn how to play the game without dealing with the difficulty of a boss. Just keep in mind what I said earlier. The same points you use to summon the AI partner for a boss fight are the same ones you use to level them up. I didn't realize this at first, so when I went to level up my AI partner, I was wondering what happened to all my turns, and it was because I spent them all. Viper is the third boss, and this one fight can shape how you think this game is meant to be played. Viper is everything that you expect a Souls-like boss to be. He's pretty fast with challenging but fair attacks. I'm looking at you, Elden Ring. It doesn't take long to notice the boss only has a handful of moves. In fact, that can be said about all the enemies in the game. And that's something I have to give Berserker a lot of credit on. I can't stand when developers try to go out their way to be annoying instead of providing a fun, fair challenge. There is rarely ever a time where I seen a move that looks so identical to another move, so all my muscle memory just gets thrown out of whack because they want to make the game stupidly difficult. This game has fair, easy to read, easy to learn moves. It's just up to you, the player, to pay attention. And that's a part of the reward of games like this or any action game, is paying attention to enemy patterns so that you can find your opening to strike. Bosses also have a second phase to get into, which does introduce new moves, but again, the moves are easy to read, they're easy to learn. As long as you don't panic and worry about what they're going to do next and just kind of wait and see how they move around the screen, you can easily learn them as well. After learning every move to the point of being able to guard every attack and dodge every blow, you still can get wrecked in just a few hits, and you really don't do that much damage. Your summon can help you, but every boss has a move that is clearly designed to wipe these guys out. So all I could really do is accept my fate and get good. I died over and over and over again. But unlike other games in the genre, Elden Ring in particular, you guys are going to realize I don't like Elden Ring, I was never frustrated. That's because of the Sekiro DNA that's in Berserker. This fight is where I made a huge mistake in thinking that this game is more like Sekiro than it is like Dark Souls. Sekiro has very little RPG mechanics, and it's all about studying and executing. So I did just that. I studied the moves, learned when to counter, and although I was barely doing any damage, because I wasn't taking damage, I eventually killed the beast. The feeling of triumph was intense, and I just knew that I finally cracked the code. This is how Berserker is meant to be played. And I used what I learned from this fight for almost half of my playtime, studying the boss, finding my opening, and getting to work. The fact that I decided to stick with a great sword build, which is already a defensive role, pushed me to master Brink Guards and Reflections. Reflections are like Brink Guards but on steroids. They are high risk, high reward. The timing is slightly different than a Brink Guard, but if you land one, it will stun any enemy and take a giant slice out of their stamina, if not drain it completely. So my defensive game was A1. I was able to have fun and win by playing this way, but little did I know, I was playing Berserker all wrong. As fun as it is to play Berserker like a rhythm game, I began to feel fatigued. I quickly learned not to dump my skill points all over the place. Remember I said don't become a jack of all trades, right? And I only focused on my B grade weapon stat. And I even invested into weapon skills that helped my defensive way of play. But anytime I had to fight a boss, I just felt like my character was too weak. Normal enemies can put up a challenge, especially the elite ones, and my damage output fighting them felt fair, but when I fought bosses, I just felt like I was underpowered. Bosses just felt like sponges. And if it wasn't for brutal attacks or my charge heavy attack, it was almost like I was doing chip damage the whole fight. Which, funny enough, thanks to how I built my character, anytime I did a brink guard, I would do chip damage, and I've actually killed a few bosses by doing chip damage through guarding. I needed to take a step back and rethink my approach. There has to be something I'm missing, and that's when I got to this side mission. I unlocked blacksmithing, which allowed me to create new gear, and not too long after that, I unlocked the ability to augment my gear and level up my gear. First Berserker is good at drip feeding all its systems to you, and they do a really good job of explaining them as well. There are many, and I mean many, terms and verbs that your weapons and armors can have, and they do a really good job of explaining everything to you. I like the drip feed approach compared to something like Neople that once you unlock its blacksmithing mechanic, it just dumps everything at you. I didn't even get a chance to process this when that game first came out, and it took me a long time to really understand it. But the problem is this. First Berserker doesn't explain that this game lives and dies on its gear system. If you do not realize this, you could still play and have fun like I did, but you will feel something is wrong despite your enjoyment. Berserker explains everything so well that it's perplexing as to why they didn't explain the importance of gear. You might be thinking that I'm just some idiot because, of course, gear would matter. It's an RPG. It has your classic Diablo style gear system with different stats and rarities. So you might be thinking, why would I be assuming that gear didn't matter? Well, you remember that duck saying I used earlier? This duck may look familiar, but it isn't a normal duck. Every single game that I have played that uses a rarity gear system, like Borderlands to Strangers of Paradise, all the way up to Darksiders 2, have never pushed you on your first playthrough, that's the important part, to play the meta. For those that don't know, meta is referring to the most optimal way of play. Every game has a meta, and this is something that only the diehards would care to learn to be the best player possible. Berserker is built as if I'm supposed to already know all this. How am I supposed to know the best way to play my build or how to maximize the damage with my gear? If you don't figure this out early on, you'll just do what I did. You'll think you're supposed to play the game like Sekiro, and while that will work, you'll be doing like next to no damage, and the game will take a long time to play, which explains how I got up to 260 hours on my first playthrough. The most important thing about gear is actually location. Each stage has some type of element or enemy type that a certain gear set will help you overcome. That Viper boss fight, although I had a lot of fun beating him and doing it the way I did it, if I actually wanted to do decent damage towards him, what I should have done, which I didn't know to do, was to use the Dragonkin armor set, which does more damage to Dragonkin enemies. I didn't even know this dude was a Dragonkin. Checking the codex can help you learn enemy weaknesses, which can tell you what gear you should be prioritizing. Gear can drop from bad guys, but dismantling gear to craft better gear is more efficient than hoping on the RNG. The game sort of helps you understand that gear matters, as stages with ailments like poison will normally have like a ring or a necklace combo that you can find that will help you deal with those elements. That's nice and all, but they should have made it clearer as to how important gear is overall. The bonuses that you get from gear sets are so potent that any gear that's not a part of a set is designated to the dismantle menu. Gear sets can be tied to a certain weapon too. So even if you find some cool looking armor with great stats, if it's for a weapon that you don't use, it just becomes scrap metal. This is a good thing though, as you will have so much gear that you're going to end up scrapping that you will always have material to build the gear that you actually need. You can sell your gear for cash or XP. You can re-roll certain bonuses on your gear to maximize the type of character you're trying to build. And this right here will show you how important gear optimization is. Not only does Berserker give you a clear understanding of what each term means, like I said, they do this better than other games, but they even tell you the full list of possible outcomes from the lowest value to the maximum value too. If they would have added in the probability that you will land on a particular stat, that would just make this system be amazing, like perfect. I didn't even use this feature till the late game, as wearing the best armor for the boss was enough to get by. Gear is as important as learning the enemy's moves. I knew gear would become important in New Game Plus, as that's the norm for games in this genre. Most people will just put on the highest rated gear and call it a day. A full armor set is so powerful in this game that you can have a full armor set that's multiple levels below current drops that you're getting for enemies, and that full set will still dominate over random pieces with higher numbers. Making gear optimization be this important isn't a bad thing. It's just an odd choice to do it so early, because our muscle memory of similar games will tell us that this is something that you'll be concerned with in the New Game Plus or in game. I have never had to respec my character this much in my life. The leveling system, to be fair, is pretty easy to understand. Everyone needs health and stamina, but strength, willpower, and proficiency are your main damage sources, and you should only invest in the ones that go to your corresponding weapon. Each weapon has a grade next to 2 skills, and the highest grade is the one that you need to invest the most in. Oddly enough, the grades never change, unlike other games, and even in the demo of Khazan, there's higher graded gear. Some people decided to use their demo weapons in the main game with the higher scaling, and the difference in damage was so great that they just kept the weapon the whole game. Like, some people even said like doing this is bad because it ruined their experience. I think they removed these weapons with the higher scaling for balancing, or they just want to make it like future DLC. Hopefully it's free DLC, but we'll see. I do wish they could have got these ready for the base game, because that would have made the balance between action and RPG seem closer than they are now. You should always prioritize what gives you the most damage output, and for me, that was strength. However, there are other bonuses that you get from other skills, so there might be times you need to respec, like me, to get bonuses like more stamina damage and stamina defense. Thankfully, respecking in this game is affordable, as the bard sells them for like 10k, and gold in this game is going to be flowing as you kill enemies from dungeon to dungeon. I think the reason why respecking in this game is so easy is because of the designs of the bosses. Not only is there an armor set that will greatly increase your odds of winning, but there are bosses that favor speed over damage and some that favor defense. Having to respec Khazan to tailor him for the particular boss I was fighting is a very weird thing. I don't think I've ever played a game that kind of makes you do that, but it is fun figuring it out. It was like a puzzle, like, oh, this boss I need to favor speed, so I'm gonna take some of my strength away so I can be faster, or I need to increase my health because this boss hits like a tank and I need as much health as possible. Unless you're insane and plan on grinding to the point that you have 99 stats all over the place, you're not going to have enough XP to be the best of the best for each boss. So you have to invest wisely for what you need in the particular moment. I'm going to use the Water Witch as an example. She's similar to a gimmick fight where, unlike most bosses, it's all about dodging and countering. Countering is different from brink guards and reflections, as you only can do these to attacks that have this red flash, and these attacks can't be blocked and they're not supposed to be dodged, but there's a few times I was able to get away with it. This boss is weak, but I was so slow that I couldn't keep up with her, and I had to trade off my damage for speed. Some bosses have purple stamina bars, where the stamina never rebuilds unless they do like a special taunt or something. Although strength gives me more damage, taken away from strength to place in proficiency, which increases the damage I do to a stamina bar, is the better choice in this circumstance. Building your character doesn't stop there. Weapon proficiency builds up as you fight, and you gain points to invest in your skill tree. If you've ever noticed a cap on your weapon proficiency, that just means you need to beat the next boss, and once you do, you'll gain more afterwards. There are 4 different skill trees to invest in, one for each weapon and one that's for common abilities. You can place them however you want and remove them whenever you want at no cost. Again, this menu should push you to understand that you should stick to one weapon at a time. As when you switch to a different weapon, like me, I switched to the spear, all my skill points that was on the greatsword are still there. And like I said, I didn't even know where to begin to put these skill points in the spear. So please stick to one weapon per playthrough, unless you're prepared to learn everything all over again. Now, I could have learned how to use a spear, but I'm not finna undo 50 hours worth of muscle memory to do that. There are 2 types of skills that you can invest in: passive skills and action skills. Now, when I say action skills, I'm referring to the ones where you have to hold down a button like the trigger or the shoulder buttons and a face button to activate. You shouldn't ignore the action skills, but to be honest, the passive skills were so more important in the beginning of the game that I waited a very long time before even investing in any action skills. I need to get comfortable with the base skills first before I got all fancy with special moves. For a great sword user, most of the skills I invested in helped me do a basic combo really. Great swords are slow by nature, and being able to get in an extra swing or to charge my attack in between my combos really fleshed that weapon out. For any weakness that naturally comes with a big hulking sword, trust me, there is something in these skill trees that will cover those bases. Like, for example, I needed something to bridge the gap between me and my opponent because a lot of the times my swings were slow and dodging forward and doing an attack really wasn't getting the job done. But there is a skill tree designed specifically for dodging attacks with the greatsword. So you can dodge into an attack, do a combo. There's also a really useful action skill that just glides me towards my enemy with a sweeping swing. And then I realized I needed something to stun my enemies better. As with the greatsword, a normal attack can stun them, but not as good as some of these action skills. Here's an attack that can stun and has a small AoE effect. It wasn't until the final boss that I learned that there is such a useful skill for the greatsword that spawns in a giant AoE attack that does chip damage and it can stun if you invest your stats properly. This one move is the biggest damage output I have found for my build, and this is why testing every skill is so important. Your common skills go with any weapon, and they can unlock essential moves like doing a brutal attack on weakened enemies, learning how to use reflections and counterattacks, and as you progress through the story, you will unlock this powered up mode that you can get into, and it has its own skill tree found in the comment section. I learned that it's best to remove any skill points that are for exploration to the combat skills once you're in a boss fight. It's not like you'll be using them anyway, so you should remove them and put them to better use anytime you're fighting a boss. You can even find extra skills that are only available via certain gear sets. Berserker is amazing at allowing you to experiment. I do think games like Strangers of Paradise have more options, but I think that the quality of options in First Berserker is better and easy for the player to understand. Like I said, they will not overwhelm you with this information. It's just enough for it to pique your interest. And once you discover the things you can do, you'll have a decent amount to play with once you get into your experimental bag. It's a great game to get new players into the mindset of understanding how to build a character in an RPG. I still stand by my opinion that they should have emphasized how important gear optimization is, so that people won't just go for the bigger number or do what I did and think that you're supposed to play the game like Sekiro and any RPG element is something for the late game. Some people won't even come across the issues that I had because they'll just go online and look up the best build for their character like almost immediately. People have already figured this stuff out, but I encourage you to not do that unless you've tried all options, because I'm telling you, if you enjoy puzzle games, if you enjoy problem solving, it's almost like you are getting that inside of your action RPG, figuring out on your own the best way to maximize damage or any stat that you're trying to go for. And I'm telling you, some of my favorite moments in this game was going to a boss, realizing that I am doing well, but I keep dying and I think I can do more damage. What's something I can increase on my gear? What's something I can augment? Do I need a whole different armor set now? Should I respec and put more skills in my stamina versus my health or my strength? All of that to me is enjoyable. If this stuff isn't for you, then by all means, just look up guides on the internet. But for anyone that loves to discover things on their own, this game is for you. Discovering new ways to maximize your overall performance is a part of the RPG magic. That aha moment where the systems that you thought worked one way actually had way more depth than you could even imagine. All of that stuff is here. Playing the game as a great sword user is just one way to enjoy Berserker, meaning I can always play with the dual sword or spear and get a completely new experience. That's how deep this game goes with its mechanics. Berserker has plenty of enemy variety. Humans, zombies, dragons, bats, and ghosts will love nothing more than to take you out. Learning how to deal with them doesn't compare to boss fights. But the elite enemies are souped up versions of the grunts. They have more health and do crazy damage. They can drop nice loot and give you tons of XP as well. Unlike regular enemies, these don't respawn unless you completely restart the mission. The cool thing about normal enemies, but especially the elite ones, is that if you pay close enough attention, you'll actually notice that some of these enemies actually share moves that the boss may have. I found that elite enemies do this more than the grunts, and it's kind of like a way you can get some practice in before fighting the final boss. I never felt that the enemy placement or their aggression level was unfair. There are times where your gear simply is playing against you for the enemies that you're currently facing, but potions that remove ailments can help you out in the meantime. That's why you should always use Berserker's Codex. The Codex will have information to help you understand how you should deal with the bad guys that you will face. You can even unlock these special challenges for beating foes in a particular way. Doing these unlock items, but most importantly, they unlock scrolls that you could take to the blacksmith so you can craft new armor and consumable items. As far as boss fights go as a whole, Khazan has a great number of them. All have their own quirks that you need to learn, and this is where most of my time was spent. Dying over and over and, well, did I say dying? I really, what I meant to say was I was learning through the process of repetition. That's what I was doing. I wasn't, dying is just a social construct. It's not real. It doesn't exist. Learning enemy patterns and making sure you have the right gear for the job will greatly increase your chances for victory. I enjoyed all the boss fights except for one. The Necromancer is the only boss in this game that I would say is a bit unfair. She's too quick, doesn't stay stunned for long, can make a bubble shield that reduces the damage and nullify any opportunity to stun her at all. She plays keep away with you, and me being a slow greatsword user, you can understand my frustration. Then you get to her second phase. She spawns in her helpers to attack you, but if you let her charge up, she'll spawn in a deadly reaper that's a boss fight in itself. You can stop her from getting a full charge, but the sick thing about all of this is that it's actually better to let her spawn in the reaper and just fight him alone. See, the other spawns can jump you, and because they are quick just like her, you'll be out of stamina trying to deal with these fast moving enemies on top of dealing with the main boss. So I found myself in situations where I would deal with her grunts, but then I don't even have enough energy to attack her or even dodge out of the way of her attack that's coming towards me. Then there's this ghost enemy that pops up. They're all kind of ghosts, but he's like a ghost spear guy, and he disappears, reappears, and every time he's attacking you, it's a attack you can't dodge, so you have to counterattack it, which is difficult to do, and is oftentimes off screen, and sometimes he spawns and disappears and never comes back, and other times he keeps popping up. It was all over the place. I couldn't stand when she would use this guy. I barely beat the Necromancer, and in the next mission, I ended up having to fight the Reaper solo anyway. And funny enough, I had a way better time fighting him alone than I did when he was with the Necromancer. The reason why I'm telling you to just let her spawn him in is that you'll actually be getting practice for the next upcoming boss fight. But it's not just that. Every time you fight the Reaper and defeat him, she slowly floats down to the ground and basically does nothing. And in the meantime, you could be charging up for an attack or a combo to basically wipe out her health bar. So it's actually better for you to just fight the Reaper and then get in the only chance you possibly can to do significant damage to her. Because I'm telling you, this boss, she doesn't have too many openings. And this is like the clearest one that I found fighting her. I think the Water Witch was a better keep away boss fight. She doesn't run away from you as much, and she does have an attack that you can easily counter that leaves her open, which is way better than the Necromancer that had barely any moves that left her open. And like I said, she always could just get out of your combo by jumping away. Outside of the Necromancer overall, when I really think about it, Berserker has probably the best lineup of boss fights in any Souls game. When I think about all the FromSoft Souls games that I played, I can say First Berserker definitely outdid all of those, unless you want to count Sekiro as a FromSoft Souls game. And if that's the case, then maybe not Sekiro. Sekiro is just, that's my game. I love that game. But it is up there with the best boss fights that you'll find in Nihon and Strangers of Paradise. And if you need practice, there is a training room where you can spawn in enemies to study them. Now, it's sad that you cannot do this with the bosses, but the cool thing is about this game is that every level is pretty much linear, and there are checkpoints that you can easily go back to that will put you right in front of the boss room. So practicing on them isn't hard, but you just kind of got to go back into the main game and not the training room. I love when a game can weave in all its mechanics into one well-braided rope. We know how combat, gear, and stats all blend into one big pot of soup, but there are also ingredients that are essential to this dish in the form of collectible items. And unlike most games in the genre, these aren't just here to add extra lore. Collectibles can help you understand the overall story, or they can just give you tidbits about the environment that you found them in. They also can help you in battle. Khazan's memories will reward you with points if you find all the collectibles in each stage. These points can be used to permanently boost your damage output separate from your main damage stat like proficiency, strength, and willpower. This one thing allows players that care about lore and those that just, want better damage a reason to find these items. I love when games give collectible items more than one purpose because I'm gonna be honest, I could care less about lore in most video games. Finding these items also tie into getting the true ending, but I'll come back to that later. There are other collectible items to find as well. Red crystals can be destroyed, and after you found a certain amount of them, you can boost your XP gain or how much health you get back from a healing item. After you spend enough crystals, you can even boost your spirit bar. It's highly recommended that you go out of your way to find all the red crystals. You'll need to find all of these because you use your spirit bar in order to use your action skills. So the more spirit you have, the more action skills you can use in one combo. And of course, who doesn't like more health than XP? So it's a win-win no matter how you slice it. You can even, for no cost at all, refund all your points you invested into each crystal and invest them somewhere else. Now you might say, why would you even do this? Well, this is why. In the end, I kept removing my crystals when I had to fight certain bosses because they were just a little bit too difficult, and I needed more health than I did XP. So basically, I was removing all the crystals I invested into my XP gain and put it into my health recovery. So now when I take one healing item, it basically just gave me a full health bar back. Speaking of health, there are also items that you can find that increase the number of heals you get from each checkpoint. There are special items that you can also find to unlock phantoms and or give the phantoms bonuses. Phantoms are like these passive characters that can give you extra stamina recovery, a damage multiplier, or make your javelin more deadly. Use whichever phantom is best for your build, but I mainly stuck to the extra stamina recovery. Then you have these little jar dudes that you can find. They may look familiar to anyone that has played the Nihon games. These little green dudes are hidden in each stage, and finding enough of them will expand this special shop with unique gear and materials. Now, these special materials aren't only found in this shop, as you can grind bosses and the bosses will drop them sometimes, just depends on the RNG. And some bosses require you to break off some of their body parts in order to get their special material. But it is nice that you can always buy them from the shop, but just keep this in mind that the shop number is limited and the shop does not restock. So that's a bummer, but at least you can buy some if you need them. And the cool thing is that the shop even does a nice job of telling you exactly which boss or which area will have this particular item you need to craft certain gear. These goofy jar heads may look ugly, but they give you extra points to your stats, allowing you to go beyond the cap of 99. Plus, the rare helmets can also replace one item out of your gear set, meaning you're getting all the bonus effects from the jar head and also all the bonus that you get from the full armor set. I had a great time searching high and low for all these collectibles. I would even break away from the next mission to find anything I missed in the previous levels. Thankfully, they tell you how much you're missing, and you really don't need a guide as the levels are small enough where you can kind of figure out where the things that you miss are hiding. This is how I feel collectible items should be done in video games. Make them more than just a checklist item. Give the player more of a reason to find them other than just being a completionist. Bravo, Khazan. Bravo. I briefly talked about level design, and it's not much to talk about here. Level design all around made finding everything fun. The maps are small, but they do have tricky little hidden passages and doors. The maps get more Souls-like as you go along in your adventure, introducing booby traps and walking on tight ledges that can lead to your death. Khazan has a lot of replay value for your dollar. A 40-hour campaign, if you didn't play the way I did, many side missions to do, 3 different weapons to master. There's also a new game plus that increases the challenge, and you get access to even more rare gear that you won't even find in your first playthrough. There are 3 different endings. While you can get 2 in one run like me, the true ending requires you to answer a special question the right way and to get a certain number of the collectible items. As far as in-game content goes, it's pretty standard for the genre. I would suggest that you get all the collectible items on your first playthrough before jumping into New Game Plus, and you can get about 90% of all trophies on your first run, making New Game Plus a smoother experience for anyone that wants a platinum trophy. As far as story goes, Berserker is your classic revenge tale. Khazan has been betrayed by his kingdom, and during his escape, a phantom of the Netherrealm has taken possession over his body. They must work together to save the balance of the world and to get revenge for what happened to Khazan. I'm not going to spoil the story, but I can say it's the best story that I've ever experienced in a Souls-like. If you don't like fighting to piece together lore like me, Khazan is a traditionally told story, unlike most Souls games. It's easy to follow like most stories, and any extra bits of lore can be found by reading items. I will say that Khazan has a very dark story. The supporting cast all have their reasons for being here, and you will grow an attachment to some of them. I'm not talking Mass Effect levels of companionship, but it sure is greater than your average Souls game where characters come and go and you barely have much of an attachment to them. The dark story plays off the beautiful cel-shaded art style. Khazan is a stunning game, and you would think the cartoon look would take away from this brutal world, but for me, I think they complement each other well. Attacks look great with bright red blood splattering on the walls after striking your opponent, and the red aura of your phantom just pops off the screen. Unless you hate cel-shaded games, you should love the beautiful and corrupt world of Khazan. My feelings for Berserker are still in an odd place. I had a good time, no doubt, but the unorthodox way that they pushed the importance of gear threw me off. I could tell you to watch a guide on how to build your character, but then that takes away from the fun of learning on your own. I just feel if they would have drove that point home, like made it clear, this game would have been just like almost perfect. Because I see people are frustrated with Khazan, and I promise you that this is the reason why. It's because people don't understand that this game is so gear focused and meta focused that they're just losing all hope when they're playing it. Now I will say this, maybe they will explain this later on because Khazan It has been getting a lot of updates. A major update dropped near the end of my playthrough that made traversing through menus better, and they even added a tutorial to Khazan's memories when it previously didn't have one. Although I didn't end the game with a smile on my face, I am looking forward to getting back into the game at a later date. 260 hours is a lot, and maybe that's why I'm not feeling too well about the game. Maybe I'm just tired. I don't know. I highly recommend Berserker as a great game for both newbies and veterans of the Souls-like genre, especially with there being an easy mode for those that need it. If there are any future DLCs, I plan on being there. And maybe we'll even see the higher grade weapon scaling from the demo make a return. The developers behind Khazan has a hit on their hands, and Berserker has made its way to the upper echelon of the genre. Now, if you guys could please nerf this necromancer, everything would be perfect. I swear I hate this lady.